Thank you very much for this unique and humble honor that honors a neshama, a soul, and its special journey and dignified journey in life. I want to begin with extending my heartfelt feelings and empathy and wishes to the mother, to the family, to extended family, and to all the friends that have joined together that are here, wherever they may be in the world. And the idea of a yahrzeit is not just remembering a sad event. It's actually, as I said, honoring the journey of a soul, because the soul never dies. A soul, just like a soul, is never born. It goes back all the way to the beginning with God himself, who gave us a piece of himself in every soul. And though birth and death is when the soul enters the body and when it leaves the body, but the soul itself is on a long journey that's going on for thousands of years and will continue to go on for thousands of years. So we're honoring a leg of this journey. So with all the pain and the grief and the sadness, we have to also remember that the journey continues, as you just said accurately, in the name of Naomi, that every soul has its unique journey. And I think it's appropriate to title this event in her own words, which is, I'm not of the Derech, I'm on my own soul's journey. And I want to talk about that very explicitly and specifically in a way that is not just to the family, but to all of us, lessons that we have to learn. When the Rebbe's wife passed away, the Rebbe Tzachai Mushka, one of the Rebbe, literally every farbrengen, every talk that he delivered, every time he spoke, he shared the expression from the words of Kehelas, Ecclesiastes, which, if you think about it, is an unbelievable expression. It says, "V'hachai yiten alibay," and the living shall take to heart. That when something happens to us in our families, to any family member, especially a child, it's achai yiten alibay, the living shall take to heart, which means we need to be more introspective, look deeper into our own souls, and see what we can learn from it. So I am sure that there's many, many, many things we can learn, but I want to share a few of them, just based on the little I've heard, though I'm not intimately close and familiar, but through Shendi and through many others, I do have some awareness. And I think there's very important lessons that we can learn as we honor this neshama. And maybe a good place to begin is, of all, we're right now on the 25th of Tamuz, which is the first yahrzeit. As we all know, this is a period which isn't by accident the saddest period in the Jewish calendar. It's called the 3 weeks, or otherwise known as Bein HaMitzarim. Those are words from the book of Lamentations, Eicha. Bein HaMitzarim means between dire straits. Meitzar means a point of a narrow place, a point of distress, narrowness. And the two straits are the 17th of Tammuz, when the walls of Jerusalem were breached, and the Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, when the temple was destroyed, both the first and second temple on the same day. So that 3 week period in between is called dire straits. Bein HaMitzarim, we're like stuck between two very narrow places. And that's why this time of the year is considered such a sad period, where we don't do weddings, we don't listen to music, and we don't go swimming, and we don't do other pleasurable activities to honor and respect this part of our history. However, here's two things that I'd like to point out that seem quite bizarre, if I may put it that way. When you look in the Talmud, in the Gemara, the Talmud talks about this period in time, and it says the following. Very strange way of expressing it. It says like this: just as when we enter the month of Av, so part of the 3 weeks is also the 9 days, which will begin this Friday, the 9 days, which concludes with the 9th of Av, as I said, Tisha B'Av. So the Talmud says, just as when we enter the month of Av, we diminish in simcha, in joy, so too, when we enter the month of Adar, the joyous month of Adar, we increase in joy. That's the expression. Now, why would the Talmud equate these two? They're very antithetical. They're two ends of the spectrum. There's a time to cry, there's a time to celebrate. So why say, just as we enter into Av and we diminish in joy and we cry and we mourn and grieve, so too when we enter Adar we celebrate. Why bring these two together? A similar question, it says that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, the great Moses, one of the things he decreed, he established before he passed away, similar. He said he established 2 sets of 7 days. 7 days of Sheva Brachas, the 7 days of Mishta, of celebration after a wedding. So we know for 7 days we celebrate. But then the same, it says, and he also designated 7 days of grieving, of mourning, of Shiva, that when we mourn for someone that we've lost. Again, in the same breath, in the same sentence. Why equate these two? Again, it's unfortunately tragic when we have to sit Shiva or we have to grieve. But why mix that together with times of joy? So in the classic way, Jews answer questions with questions. Everybody knows about a chuppah, by a wedding ceremony, by a wedding canopy. After the end of the ceremony, what happens? As everyone knows the conclusion. For many people, it's a relief. For many people, it's like the end of the ceremony, that we break a glass. Take a glass and you put it on the ground and the glass is broken and everyone yells out, Mazel Tov. Now, why do we break a glass? So one of the main reasons is to remember the destruction of the temple, that even in this great moment of joy, we never forget Jerusalem and remember its destruction. So breaking the glass represents that, the breaking and destruction of the temple. But it seems odd as well. There are other times you can do that. You could do it at the end of the wedding. You could do it before the ceremony. Why at the high point of people's union? There's no higher point than the chuppah. That's the moment when a chas and kala, a bride and a groom, come together and they celebrate. Why do we have to remember suddenly destruction in the time of such joy? And not only that, we yell out Mazel Tov. What's the Mazel Tov? For breaking the glass? Why connect the two? And the answer to all these questions, my friends, is this, is a brilliant and profound psychological understanding of the cycles of life. And this is also the secret to how we survive and how the Jewish people have made it here after thousands of years of suffering and oppression and affliction and persecutions and holocausts and executions and expulsions and so on and so forth. Everyone wants to know, how did you make it? Nations, greater empires like the Romans, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Egyptians, the Spanish, they're all gone. The Jewish people, barely 14.5 million people strong today, and we're still here. And the answer to all this is because we understood that the secret of life is that there is no end to anything, that there's a journey, the journey of a soul. And even when there are moments when the journey, there are dips and there are twists and turns, and it doesn't always go the way we like it, there are setbacks, we know the story does not conclude. It's a narrative. And we never get stuck in the moment. Most people, when they live in a moment, they get stuck in that moment, and that's it. If they're joyous, they're happy. If they're sad, they're sad. For us, it was never that way. We saw it all as one story, one narrative. And there's an ebb and a flow, and there's like the moon that waxes and wanes, but it's the same moon that first grows, becomes a full moon, and then it begins to wane until it almost diminishes, almost disappears, and it's reborn again. When you're able to understand that life is not made up of fragmented pieces, but it's like a narrative. Just to use a simple example, think of it like frames in a film or chapters in a book. You don't stop at one chapter, even if it's a sad chapter. You continue on and the next chapter gets better. All that teaches us that there's a cycle to life. When you look at a cardiogram, a healthy heart, what does it look like? It's not a flat line, God forbid. That is death. What does it look like? Like a wave. A wave there that peaks and valleys, ups and downs, but it continues. Contraction, expansion, the pulsating energy of a heart the breathing, exhaling and inhaling of the breath, that is the secret to life. And when you know that, you learn to navigate those waves. So that's why the Talmud is saying, yes, there's a sad month, there's sad 3 weeks and sad 9 days. However, just as there's sadness, there's also joy. And they're part of one narrative. It's one story. It's the same journey. It's not one journey. It's one long journey that has different twists and turns. And just as there's 7 days of simcha, of mishta, of sheva brachas, there's 7 days of grieving, also one part of the story. And even at a chuppah, when it's the highest moment of joy, don't forget, we're still living in a broken world. You may be very happy right now, but there are other people that have broken hearts and souls. There's a temple that was broken. We live in a world, what's not a world of Mashiach yet. We're not yet at a place of total harmony and all pain has disappeared. So even when you're not in pain, always be humble to remember someone else in pain. And the interesting twist goes the other way around as well, that the day will come, tragically, when you may have some pain, you will be remembered in joy as well, because pain also doesn't last forever. It's all part of a circle. You know, the first Ferris wheel, Ferris wheels in amusement parks, was invented in Vienna in the late 19th century. When a picture of it arrived in Lubavitch, the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Chabad Rebbe, he was very intrigued by this wheel. And at the same time, someone had come to him who had lost a substantial amount of money, a substantial sum of money in business, and he was very depressed and very down. So the Rebbe said to him, what do we learn from the Ferris wheel? We learn that life is a galgal hachezer. Life is a spinning wheel. And a wheel, you could be all the way on top, but the wheel will turn and there will be a downturn. But remember, even when the wheel is at the bottom, it will continue to turn and then it will go up again. Never lose sight of the story. A good swimmer is not someone who can overcome every storm. A good swimmer knows how to navigate the waters. And even when the waters may be stormy and the tide may be high, a bad swimmer will fight the tide, will try to try to control it, overcome it. And instead, what can happen is it'll drain that bad swimmer's energies and they can drown, God forbid. A good swimmer will flow, will go with the flow, will float when necessary, don't fight the tide. You're always navigating. The greatest blessing in life is how to navigate. Now, to say to someone, you'll never have a pain in your life, you'll never have a loss, you'll never have a setback, is not realistic. That's not how life works. To say to somebody, even when you have a setback, even when something is not understood, even when there's a loss, ostensibly, remember, you know how to navigate. You ride the waves. And this is a tremendous lesson in life. I can tell you personally, both in my life and many people that I personally counsel and speak to, when they can capture that formula to understand the journey, it changes everything. Because it's no longer just bits and pieces. We get overwhelmed by a piece. Something happens and we're affected by it. But when you understand, 1 second, there's a bigger picture. And I don't know that bigger picture. And when you submit to it, you surrender to it in a certain way, that opens up new vistas and new horizons. This brings me to another point, which is equally critical and vital. When I heard the line from Naomi, which was, I'm not of the Derech, I am on my own spiritual journey, it brought to mind a critical point. I don't know if she understood herself the depth of what she was saying. This is not about Derech or not Derech. This is about something much deeper than that. We don't know God's mysterious ways. Let's make this very clear. When I hear the expressions on the Derech, of the Derech, on the path, of the path, I always wonder, whose path are we talking about here? Our parents' path, our peers, our communities? Is it about conformity to other people's desires and expectations? What path are we talking about? Now, I understand that many people mean by that the path of Torah and mitzvahs. But remember, the path of Torah and mitzvahs is a path that God gave us. And each of us has our own way in how we connect to God. And sometimes we go through our own twists and turns. And for anybody to be arrogant to say, I know exactly what path every person has to go on, is absolutely antithetical to godliness. We are different people, and therefore we have different approaches to things. The fact that I may have a certain approach does not in any way negate or invalidate someone else's approach. And no one appointed us to be a judge of others We don't know what other people go through. We don't know what's going on in other people's hearts and souls. And we're told all the time, never judge someone that you're not in their shoes. How do you know what they're going through? You can talk about your own journey if you like, but not about other people's journey. And especially when we're talking about a neshama, for whatever reason, we don't know the reasons. Whatever went through, and this neshama a year ago, on this day, moved on to the next leg of her journey. What do we know? All we know is that the soul continues to journey and travel. And I think until we really recognize and are sensitive to this uniqueness of every person's journey, we are going to continue to be very judgmental, condescending, and frankly, destructive. Parents and children, let's take parents and children, for example. So parents can have different types of children. No two children are alike. Any parent knows that. You love your children, you don't love them to all fit into one size fits all. This isn't a creating clones. The beauty of education, the beauty of love, is that you see in each of your children their uniqueness. Some children are stimulated by certain things, others by others. Different children have different approaches. The healthy parent doesn't try to fit one child and say, why aren't you like that other child? You know, everyone knows the story of Jacob, when Joseph, his son, came before Yaakov passed away. Joseph, his son, came and brought both his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, or Manasseh and Ephraim, for a blessing. And he placed Manasseh to the right of Yaakov because he was the older son, and he placed Ephraim to the left. Yaakov crossed his hands and put his right hand on Ephraim's head and his left hand on Manasseh's head, because Ephraim, Yaakov saw, was destined to receive a certain blessing that was better or greater or superior to the blessing of Manasseh. And Yaakov could not change destiny. A blessing is to reveal the destiny of someone. So he crossed his hands. So the obvious question is, why did he have to cross his hands? Why did he not move Manasseh to the left and move Ephraim to the right, the way he thought it was appropriate? Because we don't change our children, we change our hands. We have to adjust to them. They don't have to adjust to us and to our standards and to what we think are the ideals. Obviously, we have to do our best in providing them the best role model with the best type of standards, with the best type of virtues and values that we can. But we have to fit to our children, and children are different. And therefore, that understanding that it's not about one path that everybody fits into. We say, Chanech lenar al pi darkoi. Educate the child according to his or her way. Gam kiyaskin, so when he or she will grow old, lo yosem mimenu, they will not wander from that path. But it doesn't say, here's the path and fit them into one path. It says their path. That means you want to take the eternal values and the eternal wisdom and guidance that we have from God and customize it to each person's unique journey. Unfortunately, religion is associated for many people with a word called conformity. Conformity means herd mentality. Everybody's doing the same thing. Even as a young man myself, I'm a little older than I was younger, obviously, I was always troubled by that idea, because I said to myself, one second, God created us differently. I'm different than my friends. My friends are different than I. We can love each other. My siblings are not the same as I am. If everybody has to fit into one cookie cutter model, into one mold, why did God create diversity? So I remember I asked one of my teachers, my rabbis. Well, he didn't give me an answer which really very satisfying. He said maybe. He said maybe, to his credit. Maybe it means because we have to eliminate our diversity and just all become like one. Now, we all understand that's quite ridiculous, because God, it's like saying people have blue eyes and brown eyes, or red hair, or blonde hair, or brunettes. They should all change their color hair to look like one. That's not the way we were created. The beauty is, think of it like musical notes in a symphony. The musical notes are very different, but they coordinate and they create one harmony. If all the musical notes sounded the same, all you have is monotonous noise. A symphony is precisely many different musicians, many different instruments, many different notes, but they're coordinated and they're integrated in a way that creates a harmony within diversity, what we know as tiferes, beauty. What is something that is beautiful? It's not one color or one shape or one musical note or one sound. It's many different ones combined in the right order, and you have beauty. What's a beautiful face? Beautiful eyes, beautiful nose, a beautiful ears, a beautiful complexion. It's a combination of all of them. In some way, when they're coordinated in the right way, we say that's a work of art. It's beautiful. It's harmony within diversity. So it's true, diversity without the harmony can end up creating chaos and even anarchy. But the goal here is not to eliminate individuality. And lo and behold, as I grew a little older, I came to discover that the greatest religious and Torah leaders and Jewish leaders were all nonconformists. Nonconformists. They were pioneers. They were revolutionaries. Avram Avinu and his wife Sarah, they went against their entire culture. They defied them all. That's why they were such a threat. They went against the pagan culture of their times and stood up and said, no, we will not live a life of self-interest. We will not live a life of self-indulgence. We want to live a life of higher purpose, a life of justice, of virtue. And that was a threat to the existing establishment. That was a threat to the existing bureaucracies. So over the years, Moshe Rabbeinu, was he a pioneer or was he a conformist? There were none of them were conformists. I'm not going to get into analysis how conformity came into the picture. Maybe the comfort zone, maybe people's insecurities that they have to feel like they belong to a certain country club. But the key thing is to remember is this, that yes, there's one God and there's one Torah and there's one set of mitzvahs, but the ways to do them, to play the music, there are infinite different ways to do so. So even though we may all say the same prayer, Shema, Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, or we say Moda Ani in the morning, so it sounds like we're all saying the same words. Those are the words, but the music that comes out of it should be very different. Two musicians can play the same musical composition and they sound very differently because they're bringing their individuality into it. So I think this whole concept of Derech has to be revisited. And I would say the following, what we need to learn to do, and this is maybe the greatest lesson of all from Naomi in her own mysterious journey, which we may or may never understand fully, is to understand that the key is to recognize the uniqueness, the individuality, the diversity of our children, of our brothers and sisters, of our friends, different community members. And yes, in that diversity, try to present that each should be able to play music in their unique way and to eliminate once and for all judgmentalism and condescension and punitiveness and anger and all the negative forces that come with, frankly, I would define it as coming from insecurity. If you have to be wrong for me to be right, there's some problem. There's nothing wrong. You can have a disagreement with someone and love them dearly. Two different people, two different opinions. You could even adamantly disagree, but not to personalize it and not to turn it into character assassination or excommunication or blacklisting or all the other stigmas and stigmatization that comes with biases and prejudices. And it's really appreciating the uniqueness of a neshama, a soul. To the end of the day, as the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad Chassidus, says in Tanya, which chapter? Chapter Lev, Lamed Beis, 32. Lev means also heart. Lev was also pronounced in English love. The chapter called Love. So he describes what love is in two lines. And he says the whole point of love is, not two lines, actually two words, is the dominance of spirit over matter. And when you make the body more important than the soul, in other words, external looks, superficial stuff, you never can have true love because we're not alike. I don't like what you look like. I don't like how you dress. I don't like this. I don't like that. But when you make soul dominant over the spirit, dominant over matter, spirit, energy is more dominant than the body, then souls, we're all one. Soul's spirituality unites and materialism divides. And that's when we become all types of diverse brothers and sisters, all of one father, of one mother. We are all connected, however, like different musical notes, each with our own uniqueness. That's only when you look at people through the lens of a soul. So as we say, as we're here together, gathered together to honor a neshama, a neshama that actually means sweetness. Naomi means sweetness from the word noim, sweetness. A sweetness that comes from the uniqueness of her soul and that teaches us the uniqueness of our soul. And that we do not know people's journeys, to be understanding that very clearly. These are the mysteries of God's ways. And recognizing that is actually a godly thing, a divine thing, because it means that there's a bigger picture, there's a bigger story, a bigger narrative that is transpiring. And the narrative is hardly over, maybe only beginning for many of us. And we recognize that humility allows us to really appreciate the majesty and the dignity of Naomi's neshama, of each of our souls, and lessons that we can learn, the living shall take to heart, as we interact with others, to learn this topic, to learn this idea, to learn what that means. And it's interesting, whenever you're in your comfort zone and your own narrow place, talk about dire straits, you usually don't grow. You grow when you're challenged and you see something different than you. If you gravitate to things that you're accustomed to, then you become a creature of habit, a matter of routine, a matter of by rote, mechanical Judaism, we call it. Mitzvahs anoshim alamoda. It's not alive. It's just going through motions, robotic. Whenever you get out of your comfort zone and something is not the way you planned it, you meet somebody that's not on the derech that you call the path that you think is the right path, you know what it is? It's a lesson to you to look at yourself and see where your hands are. Maybe you have to adjust your hands like Yaakov did. Maybe you have to adjust your perspectives and so on. We're not talking about compromising yourself, but it's learning. That's who you learn from. You learn from people not like yourself. You learn from people who are different than you. And you also learn the humility that you don't know what other people are going through. It forces you to get out of your comfort zone and to experience God in new ways and in fresh ways. And let's be honest, when do we really grow? When we're not just doing what's comfortable, when we're doing something that's not comfortable, actually. Now, obviously, this should all be at a minimum, meaning it should all be in peaceful ways and in beautiful ways and not through tragedy and not through loss. So I want to conclude where I began. As we stand in the 3 weeks, we pray and we bless each other that these are not just sad days that we remember sad events, and we remember the dissonance and the so-called disconnection between the divine and existence, between the purpose of who you are and who you are. Like when you ask somebody, who are you? And they give you their business card, that means they're telling you what they do, not who they are. But we are able to connect who we are with what we do, and that your inner self is expressed in your outer self. That's really the ultimate tikkun, the ultimate repair and healing of this period in time. That's on the macrocosm. And on the microcosm, the healing from the sad loss of Naomi, even though I said loss, but at the same time, remember the neshama is never lost. So it's only a matter of a disconnect on a material level. But we pray and we hope, as we say about these days, that Yehovchu Yomim Elu l'sasna l'simcha l'moedim tevim, which means we don't just eliminate sadness, we don't just neutralize it and nullify it, but we transform it. It becomes a springboard for growth. Because frankly, if each of us, and I want to make the suggestion that each of us should take the lessons, some of them I shared, and other lessons I'm sure that we could all derive from Naomi's life and from everything she was involved in, that we take lessons to heart. That not just remembers, it transforms, it continues to perpetuate the legacy of her soul and helps give it legs, arms and legs in our own personal lives. So we need to take lessons and learn from her life, learn from the mysterious journey, learn from the fact that we are all on a spiritual journey that's unique to each one of us in our own way. And together, when we can appreciate that, together with our diversity, can create even more beautiful music than ever before. So Hashem should be menachem, should console you, family, mother, family, children, siblings, and everyone around to, like we say, being that is the 3 weeks, with all those that have grieved and have mourned over the dissonance and disconnect, wherever it may be, but above all, that we should come to the day, and it should happen even before Rosh Chodesh Av, even before the end of this week, to the day when we can actually see the beautiful light within even the darkest moments, and recognize, as one person who suffered a great tragedy told me, that in the end, all will be good. And if it's not good, it means it's not the end, because the narrative continues on. The wheel continues to turn. And just as we have these sad moments, they lead into joy, and actually their real inner neshama, their soul, is joy. I'll conclude with the words of the Muktzar Rav, the Minchas Alozer, who said the following: when we say Mishanichnas of Mamayitim Besimcha, he says, when of enters, we diminish in joy. He reads it this way. He says, when the sad months of enters, we diminish the sadness with joy. Now, the joy that we can exert, the joy that we can elicit from within our souls, having had such a special soul in your life and continue to have, because your daughter and our friend and our family member, Naomi, continues to travel on her soul level, wherever she may be, and she's definitely with us right here as we speak. There's a joy in that as well. So there's a sadness that the connection is not there on a physical level, but we create that body, and we create those arms and legs, and we create a living memorial for her legacy. And God should bless you. You should only have nachas and joy in a revealed way, and we will be reunited. The souls that have separated will reunite with their bodies. That's what we're promised. And it makes total sense, because the soul, as I said, is eternal. It never runs out of energy. It never runs out of momentum. It never runs out of its fortitude. May we all be blessed to only celebrate together. And again, thank you for the honor to share a few words and be able to be part of this. And hopefully I can do my part in perpetuating this message to as many people I can reach. And I hope everyone here that's joined together will do the same. And being that we are in these days, the Rebbe always encourages us, how do we redeem Zion? How do we redeem the Tzion of every soul is also called Zion? We redeem it through mishpat, through study, Torah study, and through tzedakah, through charity. So when we have those two, and plus the third pillar called prayer, then you have the three pillars, what I like to call the spiritual SPA, SPA, study, prayer, action, cognitive, emotional, and behavioral conditioning. So I think it would be a good idea in honor of Naomi to do exactly that. So I shared some words of Torah. I think a prayer was said or should be said, a bracha or a prayer, and we should all commit wherever we are to give a little tzedakah in a charity box or to someone in need. And with that, we enrich and we enhance and we elevate the neshama and manifest it in a physical way in this world. And again, only simchas, and both on a personal and collective level, may these days be transformed completely, where we only have the joy, and anything negative has been transformed into a greater form of joy. That which we sowed in tears, we will reap with great joy, with the coming of the Geula and Mashiach Tzidkenu. Thank you again so much.
Amen.